Okay, so let's talk about step 1 for creating the up-to-date biosketch. You go on to orchid.org/sign-in, connecting research and researchers. You sign into your ORCID ID. Don't have your ORCID ID yet, register now, and then you would go and register. This one is already logged in. You would essentially you would fill it out, and you would put your email address, your primary email, your additional email, and then you would go on to the next step. You would also be using your institution's email address. So what is the step that we must do after this? I have now logged in, and this is ORCID connecting research and researchers, and you would have your ORCID ID on the left over here, which is your I think it's 16 digits number. Now this is going to be relevant to all of your biosketches, and this ORCID number also comes up like on your final biosketch, so that's how they can kind of identify that it is linked to your research NIH profile, and it's also linked to your biosketch. Now let's talk about step 2. So for step 2, what are we doing? We are going on to Science EV right here. SCIENCV. This is Science EV. So then we go onto that website, and now we're there. So you log in. There's multiple ways to log in. You can log in with ERA Commons, which is your kind of grant main body public account. Other login options. So anytime you have any issues with Science EV, you're going to be redirected to the NIH National Library of Medicine Biotechnology Information website. And then there, anytime you have any issues with logging in, you can log in with all these other options like ERA Commons, Google account, ORCID, login.gov, Microsoft, NIH, and NCBI. For me, the easiest thing to log into Science EV is to log in with login.gov. So other login options, ERA Commons, I don't typically click because login.gov is such a unique, memorable login and password, and you always remember it. So that is the easiest way, I think, to get into Science EV. Some people use the other options, but typically you're going to use either your ERA Commons option, your ORCID, or your login.gov. I highly advise you to just use your login.gov. So that is step 2. Again, the website was Science EV. Then you go on to login.gov. Once you are on login.gov, this will enable you to get back into Science EV, but it's really helpful because you can use your login.gov account. Now I'm going to type in the login.gov email address. Okay, so that was the end of step 2, kind of getting onto the Science EV website. This is step 3. The National Institute Science EV website. Now you're onto the website. We have loaded the website up, and this is what you'll see. Above this is some personal information, so I'm not sharing it. What you'll see right at the top will be the name of the doctor, of the attending, whoever's profile it is. So the consultant or attending's name will be at the top. Their institution will be right below it. So verify all of those things are correct. Now, beneath all of that, we can see about 5 or 6 other documents. So now this is the website that we make everything on. The My Documents is where you'll have all of your NIH Biosketch common form. Then under My Documents, you can click plus, new document, and that will help you generate a new biosketch. This is what the grant needs. This is what the R21 grant needed. This is the grant, the final biosketch that you submit for your PI in your in your project, in your grant submission. This website creates the biosketch that is necessary for submitting. Updated biosketch, and it's as per the NIH standard, so you could write updated biosketch. It's 2026, so I'll write 2026. Now you go to document type. Under document type, what would you do? You would click NIH Biographical Sketch Common Form. So NIH Biographical Sketch Common Form. It has to be the common form. Click that. Now this here, I typically start with a blank document, but for people who have prior biosketch, they can use external sources or their old CV, their old resume, use an existing document in Science EV. Now, sometimes NIH has like updated standards on what kind of biosketch they need. So most likely, the first time you would start with a blank document, but following this, the secondary or tertiary time that you do try and create a biosketch or submit a grant, you would go here, and you would be able to use any of your previous biosketches. So I'm going to click here, option 3, start with a blank document. That will help. Okay, so that was essentially step 3 complete. Step 4 is actually making the biosketch. We're still on the Science EV website, National Institute, ncbi.nih.gov, lab/Science EV. So this is still the same website, and this is where you're going to complete your biosketch. Now underneath this, I know it's already populated some personal information, so I'm not going to swipe down. The biographical sketch is a submission of key identifiers or senior key person. You can look at instructions. Sometimes you have to go on to PubMed, and that if you go on to PubMed, that will help you. If you go onto PubMed, that helps populate the bibliography, and that helps populate all of the recent publications. And then essentially you have to pick your top 5 products, your top 5 products relevant to the project you're submitting. So if it's an R21 grant, which is exploratory and innovative, I would then go onto the attendings profile and pick more like relevant topics. So for the R21 grant, it depends on what kind of grant you're submitting for, but then you would go underneath and you would pick the most relevant publications that would show your prior research work and would also show your prior kind of innovative / exploratory. So staying on Science EV, I swiped down and I kind of wanted to demonstrate how the rest of the biosketch should look. So you've got your first name, your last name, the last updated date, you've got your position title, what kind of doctor or what seniority position you are in, and you've got a location. Underneath that, you have a professional preparation. Now, this is something that is reverse chronological order by start date. So, reverse chronological order means right at the top should go the most recent appointment, not the oldest appointment. So, I have qualified as a doctor and I started working as a resident doctor in 2024. So that would be my most, so you can type in any of the information that you need to type in. And one thing that does kind of have issues, so I would put 2024. So for this, you would just select your degree, and that's how you do that one. Yes, you have your professional preparation in reverse chronological order, meaning again that your most recent position has to be at the top, and some people have positions, further back. Appointments and positions. This professional preparation was actually your degrees, your education, and your training. So professional preparation was your education. Appointment and positions are your actual professional appointments career-wise, your professional history. So professional A was your education history, B is your professional history, C is your product. So this is the one that I mentioned requires you to update a bibliography or something like that. I'm not going to swipe down too much, but my bibliography, you click manage my bibliography, and so my bibliography, you would click manage my bibliography, and then you would pull in the articles from PubMed that are most relevant. One thing that I forgot to mention is right at the top of the page should be a profile for ERA Commons. So the ERA Commons profile right at the top is another thing that you have to link. If you logged in with your ERA Commons, there's no issue. If you logged in with your grant.gov login, then you have to go back and log in with your ERA Commons, or you have to go back and synchronize. You have to synchronize your ERA Commons, which is another step to submit the Biosketch. So now I want to swipe down all the way to the bottom of the page. So what else is there? There is a certification that you must sign right at the end. Contribution to science are your unique contributions to science with references of the 10 products. Honors are any awards or honors that you've received in your educational history. Personal statement is your personal statement demonstrating your role in the project, any experimental work that you have done prior to this, any preliminary experiments that you've already done that you want to reference, your technical or scientific expertise, and any ongoing research projects. So this is a personal statement. It is limited to 3,500 characters, and you have to format within the text box itself, because at the end, when you finish this Biosketch, it might be all, up and down. So you have to write the personal statement, and then when you copy and paste it from whatever CV or document you have, it will lose kind of its formatting. And just to recap, the biographical sketch, a personal statement, honors, contribution to science, certification is necessary, and that's what will appear on your final Biosketch, making sure you sign that, sign everything. Yes, so that is the end of formulating your Biosketch here. But after this, there's a few more steps in terms of synchronizing all 3 accounts. So the main aim was to synchronize ORCID to your Science EV and your Science EV to your ERA Commons account. Okay. It should say NIH Biographical Sketch Common Form. It's going to have a electronic signal strip right at the top, like an electronic signature with a number. That is how the NIH people can verify that this is a real Biosketch and not something that is mechanically produced or produced on Microsoft Word. You have to produce it through their official website, and it will have your name at the top. It will have your position title underneath. It will have your organization and location underneath that. Then it will have your professional preparation underneath that. Then it will have your appointments and positions. So this was your education, and underneath that it would have your appointments and positions. So that is how the Biosketch would look. It would have the certification somewhere. As you can see, there's the honors, the contribution to science, and certification should also be there. So that is the step. It's later, but you might have to do this prior to the Biosketch step. So this is step 5 in terms of the way that I've done it, but you might have to do it sooner, because if you don't have this linked to your Science EV account, it can be a problem. So this is the last website that we have to synchronize, but we also have to make sure this is synchronized. ERA Commons is synchronized to your Science EV. So far we have the ORCID account set up. We have the Science EV account set up. We can access that one through our grants.gov, but right at the top of the Biosketch, it said your ERA Commons ID, because you also need to connect your ERA Commons to your Science EV. And then making a full circle, your ERA Commons should have your ORCID ID visible too. So step 1, which was the ORCID ID, needs to also be synchronized to step 5, which is your ERA Commons. So this is how the ERA Commons page looks. It's public.era.nih.gov. Again, it's public.era.nih.gov/common plus home.era. And you can type in on Google ERA Common Plus account. Then you go here and you have status, assist, personal profile. This is relevant for a lot of NIH stuff, NIH Commons, Biosketch form, all of these. Once you are on ERA Commons as a website, on the left you can see status, assist, personal profile. Personal profile is where you will be accessing and double checking that all your accounts are synchronized. So personal profile is where you will be double checking and making sure that all your accounts are synchronized. And also when you click personal profile, you'll be able to check your ORCID ID. And that will make it very transparent whether or not your ORCID ID is synced onto ERA Commons. What is the purpose of having this public.era Commons profile is that the ERA Commons profile will let you check the status of your R21 grant. It will let you check the status or alerts, or if there's any issues with your grant application, that feedback and that status of your grant is on status, is under status. But if we're just setting up right now, we haven't submitted the grant yet, you go to personal profile. Personal profile is where you check the ORCID ID. So this is how personal profile looks. Over here, it will say your ORCID ID number. If it doesn't say that, it's not synchronized and you have to synchronize it. It will say your ORCID ID number here. ORCID was step 1. So that is what we need to double check that is synchronized. All 3 things need to be synchronized in order to submit an R21 grant. Grants.gov is where you're submitting the application. ERA Commons, this account is where you are checking the status of your grant and you're managing it. But grants.gov was where you're submitting all the application, and the step 3, which was Science EV, is where you're producing your Biosketch. Here on to step 6. So for step 6, you go back to Science EV and you make sure that you go to, this is Science EV website, account.ncbi.nih. You go to the top right where it will say your name, your email. You click options, or you click one of the buttons here and you click account settings. Then you go from here, account settings, and that is where you check that everything is synchronized. At this stage, everything needs to be synchronized. This is your Science EV website. This is the one where you're producing your Biosketch, and this is the one that you're checking that everything is synchronized. So we are checking that our email is correct. You're checking your email is correct. And then over here, it says linked accounts. Linked accounts is where your ERA Commons account should show up and your ORCID ID should show up. Any issues with that, click add account and log in with your era.commons account or link your ORCID. And that would be step 6 and step 7. You're finally ready because you have synced your ORCID ID to Science EV. You have an ORCID ID. Then you went on to ERA Commons. You made sure that ERA Commons had your ORCID ID as well. And then when your ERA Commons had your ORCID ID, you were happy. Then you went back to Science EV and you checked that you have your ERA Commons and your ORCID ID all synchronized under your Science EV account settings. Okay, that's good. So what kind of mistakes can be made with this whole process? Your ERA Commons account might be inaccessible because it's associated with a prior hospital affiliation. That would be a problem, and you would have to then contact your hospital administrator to get your ERA Commons credentials and your ERA credentials, like your hospital, to give you your access. The second thing that can be an issue is your ORCID ID is not uploading onto your Biosketch. That is very important. It needs to be synchronized to your Biosketch. Other issues that can occur: not exporting the Biosketch correctly, not picking NIH Biosketch as the Biosketch that we need to use. So those are all of the steps. I will probably, those are all of the steps. Any questions, you can let me know. Thank you so much.